Ladies and gentlemen, so our symposium is drawing to a close. It's hard to believe. It's been a very intensive 2 days, but they are now winding up with this final ceremony in which we want to now look ahead. So we begin with a glimpse, and we're looking beyond Addis Ababa. As you may have seen, our last session was titled Addis Ababa and Beyond. We're now in the beyond part of that. We're going to look ahead at a glimpse of where the DCF high-level symposium might be going next. So it's our very great honor to welcome His Excellency, Mr. Aston Peterson Kajaira. He's Minister of State for Privatization, Ministry of Finance, Planning, and Economic Development of Uganda. It's a pleasure to have you with us, sir.
Your Excellency Shin Dong-ik, the Deputy Minister for Multilateral and Global Affairs, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Republic of Korea, Your Excellency Wu Hongbo, Under Secretary General for Economic and Social Affairs, UNDESA, but also Secretary General for the Third International Conference on Financing Development, Your Excellency Martin Sadiq, President of the Economic and Social Council at the UN, Your Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, Members of Parliament, Directors, Ambassadors, distinguished colleagues in attendance, all protocol observed. 3 days ago, I came to this high-level symposium with the expectation of understanding how development cooperation can work in practice to support the transition to sustainable development. Today, as we leave, I'm challenged to a meeting that was very well organized, very successful, and has achieved its intended goals, particularly which has met my own expectations. It has helped me prepare my mindset, and I'm sure it has helped all of us to implement the post-2015 development agenda. In addition, when all of us go home, we shall be with clear messages for our technical teams as they prepare for the International Conference on Financing for Development, which is scheduled for July 2015 in Addis Ababa. And of course, the post-2015 summit, which will be held in September 2015. As we await the final report of this symposium, the following are the key messages I go home with. First, it is important to align the global development agenda with the country-level priorities as contained in our different national development programs. And as lead actors, we must move from the rhetoric of ownership to actions that will ensure full ownership by the recipient countries. Second, there is need for a mechanism to hold all parties accountable to each other in a transparent manner. In addition, there must be accountability for results. This is very important. All parties must focus on attaining results. A strong follow-up mechanism is as important to efficiency in implementation. Number three, monitoring of progress of implementation of the global development agenda must be part of the larger county-level framework of monitoring progress of implementation for the development plans that are funded by ODA. To achieve this, developing countries need to develop the requisite statistical capacity. We must have the data. We must know how many are the poor. We must know who are short of water. We must know how many of us access electricity and how many of us are living below the poverty line, besides those who are doing much better. The world of official assistance is evolving. While many emerging economies are becoming important providers of development cooperation, the developed countries are innovatively finding ways of leveraging traditional ODA to mobilize more resources for development assistance. Developing countries, therefore, need to build capacities of all stakeholders to cope with these evolving modalities of development assistance. All actors need to communicate to the populace the Sustainable Development Agenda. We can leverage the skills and networks of civil society. Many of you are represented here to reach out to the public at large. This will help change mindsets and ease implementation. Going forward, the ODA should address technological transfer to ensure sustainable production of the recipient countries. ODA should support capacity building, in particular for domestic revenue mobilization, ultimately enabling developing countries to increase domestic funding rather than heavily relying on ODA. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, I'd like first to thank the organizers, particularly the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Republic of Korea, the UN family, for the work well done. For this level of organization, will for sure, this level of organization will leave no one behind. Secondly, ladies and gentlemen, this is to invite you to Uganda. I came to Korea about 4 years ago, and I think 3 or 4 years ago, and that was immediately after the World Cup, which was held in South Africa. And among my audience, somebody asked, he says, "Where is Uganda? We did not know you. Where is Africa? We didn't know Africa until the World Cup was hosted in South Africa." As we already know, Uganda will host the next Cooperation Forum from the 4th to 6th of November 2015. I thank all of you for entrusting us with this responsibility. Kampala is more than ready and prepared and is in very high gear to host all of you. You are all welcome to Uganda. And Kampala has experience in organizing similar or even larger meetings. We organized a successful CHOGM. We had organized many conferences, including the one for Islamic Conference and many others. I can assure you that you will enjoy your stay in Uganda. Besides, Uganda is a beautiful country with happy and welcoming people. It is a tourism hub, and we advise that many of you come a few days earlier and arrange to leave a little later. But it's also an investment destination of choice. We have a population of 35 million people. We are a member of the East African Community, a member of the Common Market for East Africa and Southern Africa, COMESA, and of course, the African Union. These memberships, the country has a lot to offer. I'd like to thank all of you for the contributions you made here over the last 3 days, and thank you more dearly for the lively contributions and exchanges. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Honourable Minister Kaja, thank you very much for your very, very warm thoughts on what's happened here over the past few days and for throwing forward so richly to Uganda 2016. In fact, you whetted our appetite so beautifully. We're already booking our tickets to Entebbe International. One way. Thank you very much indeed. And now let us hand over the stage for closing remarks from Martin Seidik, President of the Economic and Social Council at the United Nations. Mr. President.
Honorable Deputy Minister Shin, Undersecretary General Wu, Minister Pedersen, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's hard to believe that we have come already to a close of this symposium, that these 3 days have really flown by, and it was a really wonderful experience for me, and I'm sure for all of you. Let me first extend my deep appreciation to our excellent host, the government of the Republic of Korea. I would also like to express my special thanks to the team at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and to the Undersecretary General Wu, Navid Hanif, Sina Mundla, and the whole DCF team, and the colleagues from the Financing for Development Office for your support and tireless efforts. A big thank you also goes to our wonderful moderators and panelists. Really, thank you very much. You have so ably steered us through what was quite a challenging course. Your guidance and thought-provoking ideas pointed us in the right directions. And we are particularly grateful for not having lost your sense of humor. What has been rather difficult, I guess, given our sometimes utterly technical remarks and interventions, not to use the word boring. I learned a lot from you all, and I personally learned a lot from you all. And you openly shared country-level experience to ground our debate. Yeah. This is so important for the Council to provide meaningful policy guidance. I'm convinced that the Financing for Development and post-2015 deliberations, as well as preparations for the post-2015 implementation, will greatly benefit from the reality check and recommendations coming out of Songdo. Your deliberations made a strong case for closely aligning the different approaches to means of implementation coming out of the Monterrey and Rio processes and climate change financing to support implementation of an integrated, unified post-2015 development agenda. You helped to clarify the main political, conceptual, and practical obstacles, both at the global and national levels, and how to address them. Sharpening this narrative on cooperating for development will be particularly relevant both in the FFD and post-2015 negotiations. Whatever your entry points into the various negotiations and efforts, I urge all of you to keep in mind and echo and advance what you have heard here these past 3 days. Without attempting to summarize our discussion, allow me to highlight some personal observations. First, 2015 could be a watershed year for development cooperation. There is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to lean back and reflect whether the moment has come for a new and hopefully common vision for development cooperation at the heart of a new global development agenda. If yes, rapid coordinated action will be vital. Second, in all its forms and facets, development cooperation will need to provide essential support to the implementation of the post-2015 development agenda for the next 15 years. Third, development cooperation is more than just a toolbox or series of technical debates. Also, with the renewed Global Partnership for Sustainable Development behind it, development cooperation will provide vital normative and operational guidance needed in different contexts. It will continue to bring together the right actors to solve specific problems. Fourth, the role of different development cooperation modalities and instruments will continue to change as geography of poverty shifts and demand for support evolves to address different challenges. Reviewing all relevant commitments and lessons learned in a more coherent way will therefore be critical to ensure integrated follow-up and smart adjustments to policy and practice. This symposium has shown yet again the importance of the unique global platform the Development Cooperation Forum provides. The high-level political forum, under the auspices of the Economic and Social Council, could greatly benefit from this work. The upcoming high-level political forum in the end of June, beginning of July, will be before the Addis Conference, and at the time when most likely the negotiations on the post-2015 agenda have not been concluded. It will concentrate its work on its future core functions, i.e. reviewing the implementation of the post-2015 agenda and giving guidance and recommendations to member states on future steps and actions to safeguard the agenda's successful implementation. The HLBF will not be a statistical institution for the 17 goals and 169 targets supported by a gigantic secretariat of simple box-ticking clerks and human incarnations of indicators. It will be a political body, the political body for the post-2015 agenda under the auspices of ECOSOC as things stand now. The HLPF will take the work of the DCF into account, and the ECOSOC will be the unifying platform for the implementation of the post-2015 agenda. The DCF must therefore remain an inclusive policy space to discuss the implications of a unified and universal agenda for development cooperation. Post-2015, the Forum should continue to advocate for development cooperation, making sure it remains at the heart of the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development. How this will all work in practice next year, for the first time, will be the task of the next ECOSOC Bureau with my dear, distinguished, and highly skillful colleague and friend, Ambassador Oh Jun, the permanent representative of the Republic of Korea in New York, at its helm. We have been and are laying the ground for this institutional setup to operate, but the reality check is due from January 1st, 2016 onwards, when we all have to implement what our leaders and heads of states and governments will adopt and decide at the General Assembly at the end of this September. I will look forward to your continued engagement in the DCF, the work of ECOSOC, and the high-level political forum. I wish you all a safe journey home, all the best, auf Wiedersehen, and the traditional Austrian Servus. Dankeschön.
Dankeschön an Botschafter Seidik. Many thanks, Ambassador Seidik. And we will now ask UNDESA, Undersecretary General Wu Hongbo, for his closing remarks. The floor is yours, sir.
Deputy Minister Sim, State Minister Kajara, Ambassador Seidik, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Like the previous speakers, I wish to start by expressing once again my heartfelt thanks to the government of the Republic of Korea for hosting this very successful symposium. The success of the first high-level symposium towards 2016 DCF is manifested on multiple fronts. Most importantly, this symposium generated a truly substantive and concrete input to the preparatory process of upcoming international conference on financing for development. Any attempt to summarize the symposium will not do justice to the richness of your discussions. However, I would like to assure you, as I said before, my colleagues took careful notes of all the key points. You will have the benefit of having a summary of all the key points later on. That will be available by the Secretariat. At this moment, I would like to take this opportunity to share some personal reflections. First, a transformative, unified, a universal post-2015 development agenda requires renewed global partnership for sustainable development. Mutual trust and confidence is the key stepping stone. This cannot be built without the fulfillment of past commitments, including those on ODA. Second, an universal development agenda does not infringe upon the freedom to choose the most suitable development pathway by countries and by their peoples. Nor does it mean all should pursue the same priorities. Universality will ensure that all countries and all segments of their societies benefit from sustainable development. There are multiple routes towards that objective, but all should lead to maximized synergy of the three dimensions of the sustainable development. Third, in the area of international cooperation for development, no stone should be left unturned. Policies and solutions exist. Past lessons tell that the post-2015 development agenda will only succeed with the means and implementation and a strong follow-up process and mechanism. The upcoming Third International Conference on Financing for Development will do just that. Next week, member states will gather in New York to discuss the outcome document of the conference. The intergovernmental process is expected to achieve the following. First, a comprehensive financing framework for sustainable development, which address the three dimensions of sustainable development in a balanced manner, with the poverty eradication at its core. It must also be relevant to the implementation of the SDGs, and should seek coherence and maximize synergies with other financing streams, including climate finance. Second, concrete policy commitments, and other deliverables which can create momentum for the summit in September and for the Paris Conference on Climate Change in December. Third, broad-based consensus on key elements and mechanisms that should be in place to ensure a strong and a meaningful follow-up process. As the Secretary General of the conference, let me assure you of all the support of the Secretariat in ensuring that the conference achieves all three objectives. I also would like to take this opportunity to urge all the member states to attend the conference at the highest possible level, which is really crucial to the success of the conference. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, this DCF high-level symposium once again testifies the potential and the relevance of the forum in the follow-up to the post-2015 development agenda. You have laid out a vision for the future of the DCF. The DCF will strive to stay ahead of the curves by focusing on the future of development cooperation and emerging issues. The trends and effectiveness of development cooperation should stay at the forefront of the DCF's work with South-South cooperation as a complement to North-South cooperation. It should pay increased attention to capacity building, especially in data collection and statistic analysis. You have also given us a number of ideas regarding the preparative phase of the 2016 DCF. This symposium has launched the process by flagging the issues of more and better ODA, leveraging of the private resources, alignment of the real and monetary tracks, and the future of development cooperation. Colleagues and friends, before we formally conclude the symposium, I would like to invite all of you to join me in thanking our wonderful host, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Republic of Korea, for their hospitality. The general support and efforts of our host country has made the symposium a great success. The personal presence of Minister Yoon showed Korea's strong commitment to development cooperation. I would also like to thank the governments of Uganda and Belgium, who are going to host the next two symposia. I thank all speakers and the participants for their active engagement. Special appreciations goes to our wonderful moderators, Ms. Melinda Crane and Mr. Henry Borsu.
Thank you.
You have guided us through all the discussions and sometimes debates with your professionalism, and with your humor, and with your high skills. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I thank the PCO team, the interpreters, the volunteers, and all who worked behind the scenes for their kind support. Their professionalism and efficiency are unparalleled. Last but not least, I would like to thank my own team, led by Director Mr. Naveed Hanif, and for their hard and wonderful work. Finally, I wish you a very safe journey home. Thank you.
Under-Secretary Wu, thank you very much indeed for that, beautifully put. And as you say, that wraps up the UN DCF Republic of Korea High-Level Symposium. I know one or two groups are still going to meet separately, including the core group of Southern partners who will meet very shortly in room 113. That's the core group of Southern partners who will meet in room 113, just as soon as we've concluded. But let's turn now to our host to close the proceedings. We sat next to each other at the DCF in July last year, and you looked at me after our session and said, would you come to Korea? I said, to where in Korea? He said, to Incheon. I didn't know of Incheon. You said, you will like it. And it seemed far-fetched, but I'm delighted. I said, yes. And here we are in Incheon. Fantastic place. So let me invite Mr. Shin Dong-ik, Deputy Minister for Multilateral and Global Affairs, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Republic of Korea, to bring the curtain down.
Thank you, Mr. Bonsu, and kind words from so many people in the podium. Mr. Woo Hongbo, the Secretary General for UNDESA, and Mr. Martin Sazik, President of ECOSOC, and Ambassador Josie Talbot, and State Minister Karaja Ashton Peterson of Uganda government, and distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. The 2015 DCF ROK High-Level Symposium, with your valuable participation over the last 3 days, has finally come to an end. I'd like to thank all the presenters, two most excellent moderators, Ms. Melinda Crane. I'm quite used to okay. Melinda Crane and Mr. Henry Bonsu, panelists, contributors, as well as development team in United Nations, DESA, and my Ministry of Korea for their hard work in making this symposium a great success. The eager involvement and fruitful discussions of the participants all throughout the meeting were truly satisfying to see and experience firsthand. Having participated in the post-2015 development agenda discussions of the past few days, personally, I have had the opportunity to compare today's time with 1960s, when development flared up as one of the top global agenda. At the time, newly independent countries joined the United Nations, thereby changing the demographics of the UN memberships. Eradication of poverty and economic growth emerged as core agendas. The UN General Assembly defined the 1960s as the first UN development decade and designed concrete steps to establish development objectives. Soon after, many UN-affiliated organizations such as UNCTAD and UNDP were established to boost development efforts at the global level. Numerous policy recommendations were made on development, trade, investment, and agriculture, among others, to help developing countries to expand their economic growth. Today, we still share a similar longing for development cooperation. However, we cannot remain simply hopeful. Rather, just as the expression, a burning heart and a cool head goes, it is a time to simultaneously pursue both high ambitions and rational thinking. Surely the post-2015 agenda draws upon idealistic images of humanity and therefore must be revolutionary. To make this ambitious goal an unachievable one, and not to let our joint efforts of the last half-century go to waste, there is a dire need to pool all of our wisdom to the greatest possible extent. In this vein, I believe that this high-level symposium brought us a step closer to our mutual goal, one small feet at a time. Over the last 3 days, in search of the answers to what will take for development cooperation for people and planet, we dealt with the realistic issues related to the implementation of the new development agenda. The talks include multi-stakeholders in development cooperation, commitments and financing, improved ODA allocation, which very much heated this room in this morning, aligned partnership among means of implementation, enabling environment for development cooperation actors to realize universality of post-2015, and ways to utilize new means of implementation and monitoring and mutual accountability, all of which were concrete and practical. We have discussed these issues intellectually and closely for 3 days. The result of the discussion is building blocks for 2 answers to the question, what it will take. One of the most frequent answers may be mindset change. All of us have agreed. Changing the mindset of people, particularly the political leadership, and bringing everyone on board will dramatically enhance PPP. This is not public-private partnership, but people-planet partnership. I heard from the afternoon last sessions a brief exchange of the Korean model between particularly Mr. Wellington Chibebe and Mr. Juan Manuel Perena. As a Korean, we have been living for about the same period of 1 generation. So after Korean War, like my foreign minister Yoon, he delivered his speech yesterday, and also the Secretary Ban Ki-moon. It is open secret that the core essence of the Korean model is dislike the mindset change. So Korea, they promote the idea of can-do spirit to most of the Korean populations to move our stage of development to the more on the developing now a much more advancing stage. So there are some progress and achievements in the field, in the area of the economic development, as well as the improving the human rights together with the democratizations in the past decades. But at the same time, we still have some problems. We admit still many tasks to do in the field of the quality of life. We are struggling to address these issues. Inequality, as we mentioned, and polarization of society, and some basic rights of the laborers, workers, and social safety net. This is a current and very pending issues. So Mr. Chibebe, he mentioned he liked to meet the people in the street in Korea. So personally, I met in the morning in front of the government building, the protesters from the labor union. So maybe if you can stay one more day, I can take you to our capital to arrange the many meetings with the ordinary people in Korea. So, and onward, in that context, still we are having growing pains for further developing into next stage. So Korea's ODA policy is also aims to share these positive lessons, not negative lessons we had in the past. So we'll continue to contribute to the joining and helping and arranging many development cooperations with other friends countries in other regions as a modest middle power in the Asia. In addition, this weekend we'll continue to our work to by attending the World Water Forum in this weekend in Daegu, different region, province in Korea. And next month we'll have another big conference, World Education Forum. Those activities and events will eventually contribute to all of us having our common agenda post-2015, improving the quality of the people and the sustainable development for the planet all together with other members of the United Nations. As Undersecretary General Mr. Hu Hongbo mentioned, Korea and UNDESA will share out meaningful deliverables, these meaningful meetings of the symposium on various occasions, including the second drafting session of the Third International Conference on Financing for Development to be held in New York next week. This symposium will not only contribute to the discussions of the implementation of post-2015 agenda, but also enhance the reliability of DCF at the United Nations Development Policy Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, the IMF's 2015 Economic Outlook report, published last November, has a rather literary subtitle that reads, "Legacies, Clouds, Uncertainty." It implies that a number of measures taken by each country during the 2008 final crisis still remain today as legacies, further amplifying uncertainties and in the global economy. However, I hope the opposite is true for global development cooperation in our works. Our discussion on the post-2015 agenda will come together in full circle. Global efforts to join the alliance will be enhanced to make the post-2015 global development cooperation more clearly defined and certain. I am pleased that the ideas and wisdom overflowing from this DCF high-level symposium will serve as stepping stones for the joint efforts to build the post-2015 era. Once again, I'd like to thank all of you here who have actively participated in these constructive discussions during the symposium. As members of the DCF, I hope that you will hold great pride in fulfilling the new development goals toward the post-2015 UN Summit and beyond. Thanking you and hoping to see you again in Kampala, Uganda in November and in Brussels next week. I hope all of you enjoyed the remaining time in Korea and the safe return. Bon voyage. Thank you.
Many thanks, Deputy Minister Shin. I quite liked being temporarily promoted to being a mandala. I think perhaps that was George Talbot's revenge, because it's also an overestimation of my role, but it gives me a similarly Buddhistic kind of influence. How does the saying go? Everything's been said, but not by everybody. Well, many thanks have been said, but not yet by us. So let me briefly also say a very warm thanks to all of you in the audience for your attention and your participation during these two very, very intensive days. To all of the organizers, both on the Korean team and also on the UNDESA team, who made all of this possible. You have worked so hard for so long, but certainly it all came to fruition, I think. To the translators for your very hard work back there. To my co-moderator, Henry, it's been a great pleasure. And of course, to all of the speakers, including those who are still with us up here on the stage. We can all now return to our tables because one more small pleasure is in store.
Fantastic. Looking forward to that. And also remember, there are a number of our delegates who are going to go on a tour. I think that's right, isn't it? They're going to be visiting a number of things around the continent. Oh, can you not hear me? Can you hear me? Yes. So those of you who are going to go on this tour, I think you're going to be making some bibimbap, I think. Is that how you say it? Bibimbap, that's right. And also to do a bit of shopping. I think that departs in about 20 minutes or so downstairs.
But just to keep the memories fresh, here's a look back at those two intensive days. So stick around just for another minute or two because we've got a great treat coming up. Thanks again. Safe travels. Bye-bye.